Hello, my name is Julie, and I'm with the Writing, Reading, and Speech Assistance area of the Learning Commons, which is all the way in the back. And today we're going to go over some general information about the Accuplacer test, both the reading and the writing. We'll start with the reading. And just so you know that this is a general information session. So if there are any concepts that are still unfamiliar to you by the end of this session, that's where you know that you look for some additional resources, go online, prep yourself some more. Are you girls trying to do it for the fall? To place into the class for the fall, for your fall classes? Okay. So we do offer additional resources, which I will give you at the end of the session. So there's some really, really great online stuff that you can do at home to help you prep, okay? Just before we begin, I wanted to make sure that you understood what our hours are for the fall. These are our regular hours. We're here 7 days a week, and this is a great free service that's available to you as a student of the college. You're able to make your appointment either via phone, online, or you could always walk in. And this is what our regular hours would be. We help with anything reading, writing, or speech in any class, okay? All right, so what could you expect today? We're going to give you some general facts about the test itself, the types of questions that are on the test. Then we'll go over some helpful hints. That's why we gave you scratch paper. We've got some helpful hints of how you use that scratch paper. We'll, of course, do some practice. We'll give you some reminders, and then we've got some great additional resources available to you. Now, have any of you taken the reading or the writing test yet? Which one did you take?
I took both.
You took both?
I just took the reading.
Okay, all right, great. So you're very familiar with what the test is like. So one of these slides I'm going to go over pretty quickly because you've already taken the test, so you know what to expect, okay? Just so you do know that you are allowed to take the test twice in a 1 year's time. Okay, so I had some students who didn't know that. They thought they could take it as many times as they wanted. So just be aware of that you're only able to take it twice. So, you know, if you've taken it already and now let's say you want to try and get a higher placement, you really want to wait until you feel much more comfortable taking that test and much more confident. So these are some general facts about the test, and you know about these, but I'm just going to reiterate them for you. It is web-based, so you were at the computer of the testing center. It's untimed, which is great. Really take your time for it. For the reading in particular, I'm a very slow reader. I have to read things at least 2 times. It's really great to know that I don't have to worry about the time element. We already have testing anxiety, right? That's like just a natural thing. So not having to worry about the time really helps me out with that. It's computer adaptive. So what that means is your test is completely different than her test. The other thing that means is that the test is going to adapt based on your level of comprehension of the questions. So the best way to explain that is if you feel like it's getting more challenging to you, that's actually a really good sign. It means that you're doing well. When I took this test, I actually was able to feel like, oh, these questions are getting a little bit tougher. Oh, they're getting a little bit easier. They're getting tougher. I was really sort of aware of that, and that just had to do with my level of comprehension. What's great is that you do get your immediate score results, so they'll be able to tell you what you get and what you need to get in order to get in the class you want. 20 questions total, multiple choice format. Did you notice you had more than 20 questions?
I had 23.
23. Okay, that's the number that I've been hearing lately. So I have heard that students have said that they've had about 23 questions. So it's anywhere within that range. You won't get like a severe amount. You wouldn't get like over 25 questions. So when you take the test, you really do want to take them on different days because it's a lot of material to handle. The reading is much different than the writing, so your brain is just at a different place. And you want to make sure that you're allowing yourself plenty of time to do it. As you know, you have to have your photo ID and your COD student ID number. allow yourself extra time and just go at the most appropriate time for you. So you know your own schedule. It's a walk-in appointment. You just go whenever it fits your schedule. But allow yourself, at least a couple hours in your schedule so you don't feel like you're being rushed. Now, they are not going to offer it to you, but you will want to ask them for some scratch paper and a pencil, and then they'll give it to you. And we'll go over some techniques of how you could use that scratch paper. You will just hand in the scratch paper at the end of the session before you leave. So then you're going to want to check out the hours and locations of the COD Testing Center. You could go to this main campus or one of our satellite campuses. Just take note that they have different hours and that they will stop administering the test an hour prior to closing. So that might just affect when you go to take it. So I had looked at the hours and they are open this Saturday, for instance. So they do have hours continuing on throughout the week. So let's look first at the reading test. Its purpose is essentially to assess your level of reading comprehension, but what's nice is it's within a paragraph format. So you're not reading any essays here. So it's just one paragraph and a question about that paragraph. And then, of course, it's going to determine your course placement. So as you're taking the test, we really suggest that you preview the questions first. There's different types of questions, and it's nice to know what it is you should look for before you actually begin reading. Then read that passage more than once. What I personally do as a reader is I read the paragraph once slowly. Then I go back and sort of skim it quicker just to make sure that I've gotten everything and I've retained it. And then you're going to look at the answer choices and look for clues within those answer choices. You might actually then have to read it a third time, and that's fine because it's untimed. You have the ability to do so. So there's really two main types of questions. One is what's called the literal question. This is where the answer is directly in the text. You could point to a sentence and be able to find out the answer. The second is what we call inference questions. Those are where we really have to look for some clues in the passage to determine what the answer would be. Within those two different types, there's really 5 areas that are being evaluated, and you'll be able to tell what it is you're being evaluated on based on what the question is asking. That's why it's important to read the question first. So there's main idea questions, supporting detail questions, those inference questions, which are a little bit trickier, then purpose or tone questions, and then the sentence relationships are actually a little bit different. These aren't paragraphs, they're 2 sentences, and it wants you to determine the relationship between the 2 sentences. Now we're going to look at each of these 5 areas more in depth so that we get to know what the difference is between them. Okay? So when we're taking a look at main idea questions, these are where the answers are right directly in the text. So make sure you read that paragraph. And when we're talking about main idea, what we want to do is we want to ask ourselves, who is the passage about, or what is the passage about? This is where scratch paper might come in handy. Try to just state the main idea in a single sentence before you read your choices. Write it down on your scratch paper. A way that will help you find out what the main idea is to look for a repetition of ideas or repetition of key words. Whenever anything is repeated in a paragraph, it's letting you know that's really important. The other thing you can do is reread the first and last sentences. Those are typically where we have a topic sentence. So that would be a great place for you to look for the main idea. Since you've then written down on your scratch paper in a single sentence what you think the passage is about, then choose the best answer from the answer choices. Okay? So let's look at an example. Remember, I'm going to read the question first. And what's nice is you have the ability to do that on the screen. You don't have to read the paragraph first. So the question will sound as simple as, what is the main idea of this passage? When you read that it's a main idea question, then you have your scratch paper and you can start jotting down some, for instance, keywords that might have been repeated. You know those are important. You know you're going to look at that first and last sentence. And then you're going to want to ask yourself, what is the passage about? And see if you can write that down on your scratch paper as well, without even looking at the choices yet. So let's take a look at the first passage. I'll have you read this alone so that you get an idea of how long it might take you to read a paragraph. So that's great. I already noticed that you ladies are trying some of those techniques on your scratch paper. What that might do is it might eliminate you having to read it a second or a third time. But what's great is if you have to, you could do that. It's untimed, okay? So remember, we're looking for the main idea. What is the passage about? Essentially, what's the main takeaway? What's most important? So let's look at our choices. Is it that explorers discovered the Bornean rainbow toad almost a century ago, that there are only 3 Bornean rainbow toads left in the wild, that scientists recently solved a long-standing mystery concerning a rare toad species, or that scientists never gave up the search for rare and endangered species? Now, are there any you feel we could eliminate? We could. Now, B is way too narrow. If we're talking about the main idea, we're talking about the idea of the entire context as a whole, okay? The fact that there's only 3 is way too specific. That's not the only thing that was discussed, okay? What about A? Can we get rid of A? A really just has to do with the time in which it happened, which again is really narrow. Okay, so now that also helps. Process of elimination works really well for the Accuplacer. So we already got rid of A and B. Now we have to determine between C and D. Which one do we think it might be? It is. It's C. Okay. Now D, I would say, is probably where they were going with it, but we didn't get that directly in the text, right? There was nothing to suggest that, oh, these really resilient scientists, people told them it was impossible, but they never gave up the search and they kept going, and right? It never really talked about that. So you want to look at what's directly in the passage. Here are the implied questions. It's still the main idea. It's still what is the passage about, what's most important. But in this case, we might have to look for some clues. So we're going to read it. We're going to ask ourselves the who or what. We're still going to want to try and answer what the main idea is in a single sentence. Look for some clues in the details. And then sometimes we have to make an educated guess. Now, the educated guess should be verified within the content, but it won't be directly stated. This is how you tell the difference. The question would say, what best describes the unstated main idea? So let's look at the passage. Now, these passages are pretty indicative of the length of paragraphs you'll see on the text. The smaller a group is, the more opportunities we have to get to know other people well and to establish close ties with them. Two-person groups are the setting for many of our most intense and influential relationships. In three-person groups, coalitions become possible, with two members joining forces against a third member. Five-person groups are large enough so that people feel they can express their emotions freely and even risk antagonizing one another. Yet they are small enough so that members show regard for one another's feelings and needs. Okay? Is it that two-person groups are an important part of our lives? A five-person group is better than a two-person group? The number of people in a group affects relationships within the group? Or groups play a central part in every human activity within the family, workplace, and government? Are there any we feel we could eliminate? We could. Again, for main idea, A is way too narrow. It didn't just talk about 2, it talked about 2, 3, and 5. Having said that, which other one can we get rid of? B, very good. Now, what about D? Can we get rid of that one? Why?
Because it didn't mention anything about it.
Yeah, it didn't say anything about that. Okay, so again, it's what's stated in the passage. So inherently, our answer has to be C. We were able to use process of elimination for all of them. Let's take a look at supporting detailed questions. These you will find directly in the text or in the passage. You're going to want to look for clue words in the question. Then scan the passage for those clue words, and then read the whole section where you found that clue word. Look for things like reasons or examples or steps. So here's a really great question because it has that word except. All the following statements about the vending machines are true except. What's great about that question is we're able to look at each choice, and if we're able to say it's true, we know that's not the answer, okay? There's going to be only one that's false. The first coin-operated vending machines in the United States were installed on the elevated platforms of the New York City railway system in 1888. These machines sold a chewing gum called Tutti Frutti, which was manufactured by the Thomas Adams Gum Company. The machines were eventually updated to feature animated figures that would dance each time a gum purchase was made. Okay? And I'm reading these pretty quickly. I read quicker out loud than I do with my eyes. So when I'm reading them silently to myself, maybe I'd have to read it a second time. So all of the following statements about the vending machines are true except. So we want to look at each choice and see if we're able to say it's true. They dispensed chewing gum in exchange for coins. Is that true? It's true, right? You put a quarter in, you got your gum. They were the first of their kind in the country. Let's look back. The first coin-operated vending machines in the United States. Okay? So, we're looking at the question, and then we're looking for some key word in there. In this case, it happened to be country. We look back, we see where it says United States, and we see it says the first coin-operated vending machine. Okay? So we're able to verify it is true. They were utilized by train passengers. Did it talk about train? On the elevated platforms of the New York City railway system. Okay? So unless people were going to the train just to get this gum, I don't think that's what happened, right? But again, that's what you do, is you go back and verify. You look for that clue word. So C is true as well. They were originally designed to entertain customers. Is that true?
No.
It's not, right? Do you know what word there is letting us know it's not true?
Originally?
Good, yeah. In the actual passage, it says the machines were eventually updated to do this, which was more entertaining. Okay? So you just go back, look for the clues, and be able to verify. So in this case, D is our answer because that's the only false answer. Inference questions. Read the questions carefully. Look for clues in the passage. Add clues to what you already know. Go with your own common knowledge. Formulate your answer, but then be able to verify that answer. Okay? So, essentially what you do is you look at the sentence, you draw clues out of that sentence, then you go with your own common knowledge and see if you could verify that your knowledge sort of matches up with the clues. Okay? So we have a picture here, and no, unfortunately the test doesn't have these nice pictures on them, right? But this is just to show you the difference between literal and inference. Okay? Literal is what we see. Okay? So what do we see?
Woman with the ice pack on here.
Woman with an ice pack, she's drinking something and she's on the phone. Okay? Inference is taking what we already know, ice pack, drinking something, we're looking at her face, she's got a blanket on, and then draw out clues based on sort of what our own common knowledge would be. What do we think is going on with her?
Oh,
She's sick, right? Now, we don't know. It's not, telling us in a little word bubble, hey, doctor, I'm sick, I need medicine, right? But we're able to draw those clues out. So that's really what the difference is between literal and inference. I will say the inference questions, yeah, they're tougher because they're not just right there, like shouting at us. We do have to do some guessing work. So let's take a look at some examples of that. Now, for this question, it says, the passage implies that Franzen's criticism of the Oprah Book Club was motivated primarily by what? Okay? In this case, we want to pay particular attention to Franzen's criticism. So wherever we see the criticism, that's the part we want to pay attention to. In 2010, talk show host Oprah Winfrey and novelist Jonathan Franzen kissed and made up after a 9-year feud. In 2001, Franzen was disinvited from appearing on Winfrey's TV show to pitch his novel, The Corrections, after he made it clear that he was unhappy about the book being chosen for the Oprah Book Club. Describing his work as in the high art literary tradition, Franzen said he didn't want to be associated with the club, which he accused of occasionally choosing schmaltzy one-dimensional novels. But Winfrey is apparently able to forgive and forget. She chose Franzen's new novel, Freedom, for her book club and said of it, now you haven't heard me say this often, but this book is a masterpiece. Okay? This part isn't really as important, what Winfrey said. Remember, the question wants us to look at Franzen's criticism. So we look back, we see that he says he was unhappy. He is criticizing the Oprah Book Club as being schmaltzy and one-dimensional, and he's suggesting that his work, unlike schmaltzy one-dimensional work, is in the high art literary tradition. Okay? Now, this is what our question was, and these are our choices. Pride, anger, insensitivity, and ignorance. Now remember, it's saying what it was motivated by, not necessarily what we think it was. And I say this because I would choose a different answer. What do we think his criticism, him saying that it's schmaltzy, one-dimensional, he's unhappy with the book club, why do you think he made those comments? What was he motivated by?
Right.
Good. Okay? Now some students say, well, ignorance, right? That would be if I went with my own knowledge and I said, well, gosh, that was pretty ignorant for him to criticize the Oprah Book Club. That's a big deal, right? But that's not what motivated him to say that. What motivated him is that he was just overly proud of his own work. The author's main purpose. Now, these are different than the main idea questions. Main idea is, what is the passage about? For this, it's about why is the author writing it. Okay? This has to do with the language. So they could be informing, arguing, entertaining, mocking. They could be doing a lot of things. Do you remember in high school, did you ever have to write like a book report? Or any sort of like informational thing where you're just explaining what something is? Did you ever have to do like an argumentative or persuasive where, hey, this is my side? Okay? Way different language, right? When we write to inform, we write really objectively. When we write to persuade, we've got much stronger language, all right? So for these, we really want to look at the language used and try and determine, well, why is the author writing it? Not what it's about, but why was it written? So here's what the question will look like. What's the main purpose? And this is why it helps to read the question first, before the paragraph. Because you might read the paragraph and be writing keywords and answering, well, what is it about, right? And then you see the question and it's, oh, wait, it's about the purpose. It's not about the main idea. So here is the passage, and we'll let you read this one to yourselves. Okay, so you're getting a good sense about how long it's taking you to read each paragraph, right? For this, I didn't retain any of the information. I would definitely have to read it again. It's because of the language that's used, right? It has a very particular purpose. Is it to explain the need for copyright laws? Was it saying, hey, we need these? Was it to show how they have been applied? To indicate how they've changed? Or to argue that copyright laws need to be expanded? What do we think, or do you need me to go back?
I say B.
Okay. Let's go back. So, it started with what it was first applied for, and then it went into 1790, 14 years with 1 year extension. Then it went into 1909. So it's kind of doing a chronology of copyright laws, right? So, is it just how they've been applied? What was it mainly trying to show? How they've changed, okay? And that just had to do with that it was showing in different times how it had changed, the changes that it went through, okay? But we're definitely able to get rid of A and D based on the language. There was nothing persuasive about that piece, okay? Now we're looking at tone. Tone has to do with the author's attitude, either toward what he or she is writing about or toward the person in which he or she is writing. So they could be angry, annoyed, delighted, sarcastic, critical, any adjective, right? Again, this has to do with diction or word choice. We're going to look at the language here. So this is what the question would look like. So now you know that you're not looking for why he or she wrote it, but you're looking for what did he or she think about it. Billie Jean King, a professional women's tennis player in the 1960s and 1970s, won 12 Grand Slam titles during her career, but she is better known for a non-tournament match she played in 1973. She played against former men's professional player Bobby Riggs in a battle of the sexes tennis match in front of more than 30,000 people and a huge TV audience. King quieted skeptics and scored a well-deserved victory for female athletes around the world, defeating the overconfident Riggs in 3 straight sets. Now I'm just trying to highlight the words I wanted you to pay attention to. Tone is a lot easier to hear than it is to read. So just again, look at the word choice that's being used. So, was the author admiring, disbelieving, indifferent, or awed? Very good. It is A. Okay? It's not that the author didn't believe it. Oh my gosh. And it's not that it was like, well, no big deal. And awed would be like in complete reverence of what Billie Jean King did. But no, it was pretty admirable of Billie Jean King. It was just positive, not over the top, but positive. Now we're going to look at sentence relationships. These are not paragraphs. These are 2 sentences, and we want to look at the relationship of these 2 sentences. A technique that we have to do this is by looking at transitional words or phrases. We call them signal words. So if you take a look at your handout, on the back, we've got this list here of different signal words. Okay? We use different transitional words or phrases for different reasons. Okay? So for instance, if I were going to add to something I had already said, I might use also. Or if I needed to clarify something to you, I might use in other words. Or comparing. If I'm going to compare 2 things, I might use similar or similarly. Okay? Now, what's interesting with these is that there is an omission of a transitional word or phrase. What might be helpful to you is before you go in to prep yourself, take a look at these signal words and take a look at why we use one over the other. Okay? So then, when you see these 2 sentences, try to place a signal word before the second sentence. And try different signal words. Okay? See which one looks like it fits the best. So here's the 2 sentences. A recent study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, USA, links childhood self-control to health and well-being in adulthood. The study claims that children with less self-control are more likely than other children to be unemployed and to engage in unhealthy behaviors as adults. Okay, so I could try, let's say, likewise. Okay, if I use likewise, I'm comparing 2 things. All right? Well, I don't know if that really works because there's not really 2 things here. It's one thing. It's one study. Okay? Same like if I said also, that would be like if I'm adding something to it, right? I'm not really sure if that works. But what if I tried for example? Then I'm just trying to give some more information about that study. That might be my best choice. And again, this just has to do with you sort of getting to know what your signal words are, and when you go in, maybe on your scratch paper, you write down some of those signal words, you see which one works the best. But here's what the question will look like. How are the 2 sentences related? The first states a claim that the second refutes. If it refutes, it might say something like, however. The second gives an exception to the rule stated in the first. Again, that might be a however signal word. They make the same point but use different sources. So that would be if it's according to this source, according to this source. Or the second expands on information given in the first. What do we think? Good. Okay? It was just giving us more information. So, for example, worked really well. Let's take a look at some other signal words. contrast. If I'm trying to state the opposite of something, I might use however in contrast. Cause-effect, a cause and effect relationship, would be as a result of or because. Spatial order just really has to do with location. As a student, Marta took numerous art history classes in addition to the journalism courses required for her major. 2 months after graduation, Marta received a job offer from a popular art history magazine. Well, let me try in contrast. Okay? Does that work? No, right? Like, that would be like this is completely different than what this is, right? That's not really. What about if I tried as a result?
Yes.
Yeah, right? So she did this first, and then because she did this, she was able to do that, right? In this case, the question is, what does the first sentence do? Does it mention a probable cause of the event described in the second? Does it reveal a problem to which the second gives a solution? Does it describe a consequence of the situation mentioned in the second? Or does it state a fact while the second offers an opinion?
A.
Very good. A was the cause. The first sentence was the cause. The second sentence was the effect. Okay? So, like, C would be effect cause. That would be, like, not in the right order.
It's not infer A.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay? Here's some more. So, are we trying to illustrate something, summarize something, or give a time, a chronology of something? Okay? A number of factors, including melting ice caps and climate change, have contributed to rising sea levels, which in turn are causing significant beach erosion. Some parts of coastal Louisiana are losing up to 50 feet of beach every year. Okay? So look at your signal words and try to see which signal word would make the most sense. Got an idea of which one you want to use? That would be if you're doing like cause effect. Okay? That would be like if it was just saying contributing to rising sea levels, the which in turn, that would be like a hence. Hence, they're causing significant beach erosion. Okay? Let's take a look at the options we have, see if that helps. How are the two sentences related? The second provides background information for the first. They contradict each other. That would be like a however. The first describes a phenomenon, while the second provides a specific example of that phenomenon. That would be like, for example. Or the first tells what happened after the events described in the second. Good. Very good. Okay? So the for example is what worked the best here. There's also sentence relationships that have to do with fact and opinion. Now, facts obviously should be objective, and they should also be provable. Opinions are really subjective statements that we make based on our own beliefs. So let's take a look at these two sentences. The food sold in the office cafeteria lacks both taste and freshness. Is this a fact or opinion? Good. According to a recent study, less than 15% of company employees have purchased food in our office cafeteria. That's a fact. We can prove it based on that study, right? So let's take a look at our choices. How are these related? The first states an opinion while the second provides a fact. The first notes a problem that the second dismisses. That would be something like on the other hand or however. The first offers information that the second elaborates on. That would be for example. Or they each make the same point by using different information. Good. right? Which we already established. It's not really different information because it's both on cafeteria use. Okay, so some general reminders for you. Make sure to preview that question first. Know what it is that it's asking. Is it looking for the main idea, what the passage is about, or is it looking for the purpose, why the passage was written? Try and eliminate wrong answers. Do that process of elimination first. Chances are it's going to narrow it down to just 2 for you. And then choose an answer that's supported only by that selection. So we had looked at a passage and we said, well, it didn't even talk about that, right? So it couldn't have been that answer. You can skim the passage, but really only after you've read it twice. I found this out the hard way. So I used to take reading tests and just kind of look at the answers and then skim the passage and like kind of, it got me by, right? I tried to do that with this test. It does not work. I can tell you that from experience. So you really do have to read the passage in its entirety. Take your time reading it and read it again if you have to. It's great because it's on time. You don't have to worry about it. So on your handout, we also have some additional resources for you. So this is where I suggest you spend your time. You could do this at home, at your own leisure, to prep you before you take the test. Don't take the test until you feel comfortable and confident, okay? The test review guide, this has some general info on Accuplacer, but then it also has questions, and then it'll give you the answers at the end, so you're able to kind of quiz yourself. The Union test prep is great because you're able to look at the questions, and then it'll tell you if you're right or wrong immediately. There is an app, you could check that out. This is just an additional PDF available to you. You could also check out YouTube, of course. But the library has a really, really great resource for you. As long as you have a library card, you're able to go onto the website and look up Learning Express Library. You'd find that under the databases page on the library's website. And you go to where it says College Test Prep, and they've got great, great sample questions that are very similar to the questions that you'll find on the test. Okay? Just so you know what our main page looks like, you're able to schedule a face-to-face or even an online appointment with one of our coaches to work one-on-one with us. We are here tomorrow, 10 to 2. We still have some openings available if you wanted to meet with one of us. And then the following week we are not in, so before school starts. So just so you know before you prep for the test. Okay? I really appreciate you attending. I wish you the best of luck on your test. If you could please do me a favor and fill out an evaluation. Did I give you one yet? Okay, so if you fill out that evaluation for me, that just helps us figure out what it is that we should improve upon. And if you are sticking around for the writing or the sentence skills portion, we will begin that in a little bit. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Do you wait till 2 to see if there's walk?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go
Thank
rest.
you. You're welcome. Good luck to you.
We have some new students.
Yeah, they could come on in.
Come on in.
Sorry, I'm totally blind without my glasses.
It's okay.
I was like, I see a blob there. But if you could sign in for me, please.
Hello.
Hello. If you just sign in, and there's also a couple handouts for you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just scratch paper, so it might be helpful for you though. We'll take a look at some strategies.
I'm gonna check my student here.
I was just telling students yesterday, I still remember mine from college.
Really?
That's crazy. It's been quite a while since I went to college, so it's crazy that I remember it.
Yeah.
Hi there. Can you please sign in for me? Right here. Sorry. And then just take those handouts.
I don't remember last student.
Your date of birth is fine.
Just put it on the CLB student.
Yeah.
And would you mind giving it to me once you get my student? Just like, I could put it.
No,